Wow. Right. How did this come about?
Well, Cristiano asked me to do it. Simple as that. I didn't ask him. He asked me.
When?
Recently, he's been thinking about this for a while. I mean, I think it's no secret that he's felt a built-up of deep frustration about what's been happening at United in the last year in particular, and certainly this year. And he feels that it was time to speak out, and he knows it's going to be incendiary. He knows it's going to rattle some cages. But I think he also feels that he should be doing this, and he knows people will criticize him. But he also knows that what he's saying is true. And sometimes the truth hurts.
When did you do the interview, Piers?
I'm not going to say. I've done it recently, obviously, but that's between me and Cristiano. But he's been thinking about this for a while, and then I got a call. I want to do it now. And I think part of the timing for him was the World Cup. Obviously, he's about to start. He's with Portugal. They've got a very good team. He could have a good World Cup. It gives him a month away from United, and it gives time for what he said to settle in, and then they can come back and try and resolve things. I mean, I think that he's not, as he makes the point in the interview repeatedly, he loves Manchester United, he loves the fans, but what he's come back to is, in his view, a sort of stagnated club, which hasn't moved on at all from where he left it, and he can't understand why not, and he just feels if he doesn't speak out, nothing will change.
Yeah, but Piers, is it for him to make the changes? Is it for him to come out and say them things? He's the football player at the club. His job is to perform on the pitch, and he hasn't really been doing that this season.
I think, look, if you're Ronaldo, right, you go back to United. The coach gets fired within a few weeks. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They bring in some guy you've never heard of. He literally never heard of him, who hasn't coached a team in 10 years, and that's a disaster too. But despite all this, you end up top scorer. He scored 24 goals, 18 Premier League goals, which, by the way, was one more than Harry Kane last season. You score 6 Champions League goals, and you continue to be the biggest goal scorer in the history of the Champions League. So I'm not sure that I saw much of a reduction in his powers. What's happened now is that Erik Ten Hag has come in and just decided that he wants to bench him and scold him and publicly berate him and humiliate him. And I think if you're
Piers, he hasn't done that.
I would urge you all to watch the whole interview, and then you'll get a much more rounded picture. I think Ten Hag, as Cristiano tells you in the interview, is very, very good at saying one thing to the media, and it's very different what's been going on behind the scenes. And he feels, in my view, quite rightly, very angry about some of the things that have happened behind the scenes. So I think people should watch the interview. You can base a lot on a few clips. But until you actually sit and watch this, and we're running it over 2 nights, it'll be 2 hours, 2 1-hour specials. It is, yes, it's explosive, but it's very revealing about what is really going on at United.
It appears though, but when you look at it, and the facts are there. The record with Ronaldo starting this season, they've played 4, won 1, drawn 1, lost 2. Without him, Ten Hag will think, well, we've played 10, won 7, drawn 1, lost 2. The record, the actual numbers speak for itself when it comes to his performance.
He's hardly started compared to last season, and he would argue there's been no diminishing in his ability to play football. He just hasn't been picked, and his argument is that he's not been given a fair run, and that a lot of the things which people have been criticising him for instance, not going back at the start of pre-season, I think when people find out exactly what happened then, they may view this very differently, and they might view the response of the club to be pretty disgraceful. So there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. Look, someone like Cristiano Ronaldo, in my opinion, the greatest to ever play the game, who's won everything, 5 Ballon d'Ors, 5 Champions Leagues, when he comes out like this, I think people should listen to him. Yeah, they may not like the fact he's doing it. They may say it's all about his ego, all about that. One thing, it's not about his money. He got offered 350 million euros to go and play in Saudi Arabia for 2 years. And he said no. He wants to continue playing at the highest level, as Ibrahimovic is doing at 40. Right? There's no reason why Ronaldo couldn't play at the top level for another 2 years. He just needs to start games and be valued by his employers. And right now, neither of those things have been happening this season.
Piers, you've just said a second ago, try and resolve this. One of my biggest things about trying to work out what's happened here with Cristiano Ronaldo, Erik Ten Hag, Manchester United Football Club is what does Cristiano Ronaldo want? What's his end game? And can it be resolved really after the World Cup?
I think he he definitely doesn't say to me, "I'm definitely leaving," right? But he's aware that by doing what he's doing, that may mean the end of his time at United. Of course, he's not stupid. But I'll give you one insight which comes out from the interview, which I think is very glaring about Ten Hag's way of handling Ronaldo, which I think has been so disrespectful. If you remember, when they were getting hammered by Manchester City, he never brought Ronaldo on. And when he was asked afterwards, well, why did you keep making him warm up and not bring him on? He said, I don't want to disrespect him. Didn't want to disrespect him by bringing him on for the last few minutes when we're losing a game like that. And then what happens a couple of weeks later, they play Tottenham, they're losing again, and he orders him to come on with 3 minutes to go. This is the same manager who just 2 weeks before had said he wasn't going to do that to him because he didn't want to disrespect a guy who's one of the greats to ever play the game. So you can't have it both ways if you're Ten Hag. Either you think it's disrespectful to do that or you don't. And if you're Ronaldo, look, he admits that he shouldn't have done what he did at the Tottenham game. He talks in detail about that in the interview. He admits that he apologised to his teammates, but he's not sorry for refusing to go on to Ten Hag because he believes that Ten Hag was saying the complete opposite to what he said 2 weeks before.
Let's be honest though, those match decisions, those decisions that you make in a match, it's down to the manager. He can do what he wants. That's his team.
But it's also
and the club pay Ronaldo to be a player that is available whenever he's called on or whenever he's not called on. I agree. Obviously, we haven't watched the whole interview, so it's difficult for us to kind of, I suppose, probe too much. I thought it was interesting that you said you didn't want to tell us when you did the interview. Did you always know the timing when the interview would be released? Was that something that you wanted to be now?
No,
is it
no. It's all been very recent. It's all been very recent. But I just there's no great conspiracy when I did it. It doesn't really matter. But I think the timing from Cristiano's point of view is that he wanted to do this before he went off for the World Cup, so that there's a bit of a time for United to think about what they want to do, and for him and his people to think about what they want to do. Also, I think there's a very good chance, given that Portugal has a very good team, that Ronaldo could have a very good World Cup, in which case it would be the best shot window for him to get what he really wants, I think, which is to be in a competitive team, probably in the Champions League, which can allow him to play at the highest level for a couple more years. He wants to probably retire around 40, he said to me. So he's got like 2.5 years or whatever to finish. But I think most of all, he wants to be respected and valued, and he doesn't feel that under Ten Hag. And that's why he said what he said. He just does not feel that this manager respects him. He thinks that from the very start, he has tried to go out of his way to score points with Ronaldo. And he thinks it's very easy for managers to do that because he's the biggest name, the biggest star, and they always get a lot of headlines. And he can often distract from real problems at the club. I mean, I think if I was a United fan, you can have any view about this you like, but let's be clear. United are 5th in the league. They're 13 points off the top, and I would like to come to who is top at some stage of this interview. And they're in the playoff stage just to reach the knockout stage of the Europa League, where they're playing Barcelona and will probably get beaten. So the idea that Ronaldo's not right about the malaise at the heart of his club, the idea that when he went back and he found that nothing had changed in terms of the facilities, even down to the pool, the jacuzzi, the gym, everything was the same as he'd left it. Now, he's been at Real Madrid for 9 years, Juventus for 3 years. And as he says in the interview, very, very different mentality at those clubs, which is why they've kept winning big trophies. At those clubs, they move, they evolve, they change, they adapt year in, year out, as United used to do under Alex Ferguson. And if I'm a United fan, I'd be thinking, that's quite worrying. Why is nothing changing? He's got a lot to say about the Glazers, which I haven't put out yet. But he's not impressed with the ownership structure either at Manchester United, or the lack of commitment he believes to the football side. I think he's just Ronaldo's a winner. Ultimately, this is about his desire to win and to be playing in a team which can win big trophies. Does anyone really kid themselves that United are going to win big trophies in the next 2 or 3 years? I don't.
I think when they brought him in, they thought that perhaps that was something that they could achieve. Do you agree with all of his behaviour? Did you challenge him on some of those things? Because I think there's been times when he's been back at Manchester United that you can't excuse.
I did challenge him, and like I said about the Tottenham incident, which is probably the most notorious of all the things that have happened. It's the first time he's ever been suspended in his entire career. He had to go home and have a conversation with his son, Cristiano Jr., which is an extremely revealing moment in the interview. A very difficult conversation. He'd never been suspended. But, I can speak as somebody who has himself made a bit of a stand with my employer and departed stage right only last year. So I can get that feeling when you feel like you're being completely disrespected and you feel like the people that you're working for don't value you properly and don't respect you, then what do? You either put up with it, you die a horrible death by 1,000 silent cuts and let the media and everybody else, ex-players, Rooney, Neville and the others, all just snipe at you constantly. Or eventually, as I think is what's happened here, if you're Cristiano Ronaldo, you stand up and you go, no, enough of this, I'm going to have my say. And whether you like it or not, it's brutally honest. I think is a lot more to this than people realise. And when they watch the whole interview, they may have a very different opinion about it.
Piers, for me, he's done at Manchester United. Would you have him at Arsenal?
Absolutely. I mean, what do Arsenal need right now? Arsenal could win the title this year. It really, we could win the title. But Jesus, I think, needs a scoring partner next to him. And Jesus, his heat map is so outrageous. He covers so much ground. Actually, what we need is a fox in the box, a world-class player with bags of experience who's won everything, who could help us get over the line. Well, I could think of somebody. Cristiano Ronaldo.
No.
Okay, but I'd take him for 6 months in a heartbeat. And this idea that suddenly Ronaldo can't play football, I'm sorry, it's laughable.
I think he can play football, obviously, but I think it's probably, as we've seen with Aubameyang, and me and you disagreed on this last time, the stat and values that Arsenal and that Mikel Arteta has now at Arsenal, and I don't think that he would want to bring in someone that's just done a tell-all interview.
I'm sure he won't. I'm sure that wasn't the question. You didn't ask me if I thought Arteta would do it. You just asked me if I would bring him in.
But do you think it would upset the balance?
Well, I still don't agree with the way Aubameyang was treated. So we can argue. We've argued that before. I'm not going to relitigate it. What I have changed my mind about is Arteta as a manager. I think he's evolved now into a really top-class manager after 2 very difficult years. I think most Arsenal fans at the end of last season were pretty fed up. But then he went in the transfer market and he signed some proper world-class players in Jesus and Zinchenko, and then he brought back Saliba. And that has made the whole difference to the spine of our team. And now suddenly we're competing, which is all Arsenal fans have wanted. It's all I've wanted. We haven't won the league since 2004, despite paying the highest ticket prices in Europe in all that time. So all the promises that were made with the new Arsenal Stadium, finally we now have a competitive team. But my God, it's taken time. So I make no apologies for questioning and challenging all the people who've been running Arsenal, all the managers who've been underperforming. But right now, this looks like a very exciting time. And Arteta, I think, has now evolved into a proper top manager. And that's great to see.
There's a couple of Manchester United fans that want me to pick you up on saying that you were winning 2-0 against Spurs, not losing at the time. And also they want they want
to be honest with you, I don't actually watch. I'm sorry to have to disappoint United fans. I don't really watch you very often, and I certainly don't like watching any game involving Spurs. So whatever the circumstances were there, I think the difference is that on both occasions, on one occasion he didn't bring him on out of respect. On the second, he brought him on and we're supposed to think that was respectful. He tried to bring him on. So I think that was the point from Ronaldo's point of view.
Also, Arsenal being top of the league, despite the fact that at the moment it's a little bit warped because they'll be top of the league at Christmas, but we lose a big chunk of the season, obviously, to the World Cup. People want to know if you think Arsenal are going to win the league.
I do. I think we've got a very good chance. And the reason is I just watched Brentford stuff Man City at City's ground. And that was with Haaland there. So I thought that they were a pretty unstoppable force, City, but they look a little bit vulnerable suddenly. And we do not look vulnerable. We look like a team now which believes in itself. I've never seen a better atmosphere at the Emirates, certainly. This reminds me of the great days at Highbury. I think that Arteta has definitely evolved now into a proper manager, and it's exciting to watch. It was interesting watching. I actually changed my view watching the Amazon documentary. I changed my view about Arteta watching that. Not in the early episodes, which I thought were cringe-making, when he was playing them "You'll Never Walk Alone" on a stereo, and he was, making them all shut their eyes and hold hands, which I think is what annoyed Aubameyang probably, because he's a world-class player. It's like, what am I doing? But as the show went on, as the episodes kept coming, I began to see that actually he has an extraordinary bond with those younger players in particular. And then when you add world-class players to the mix, as we did in the transfer window, suddenly you get to a place where you've got a competitive team. And now I would urge the Cronkies this is your chance. Come January, you have a chance to add some more firepower to this Arsenal squad so that we have a squad deep enough to sustain some injuries and still win the league. If we go and get a top-class striker, which is what I think we need alongside Jesus, a real poacher, a real goal scorer, if we have that and we have another midfield enforcer in case Partey or Xhaka get injured, I think we've got a real chance. The back four looks great. Goalkeeper's solid. We've got a lot of creative midfield players. We've got brilliant player in Jesus, great team player. But we need, I think, 2 more top-class players. And if we do, and we spend big money to get them, you could be looking at the league champions.
Piers, this interview obviously comes out 2-part special, Wednesday and Thursday. Why do you think he chose you to do it?
Well, actually, I asked him that, and he said, because I like you. Which I know will come as a horror. I know that may come as a horrifying shock to you three, but actually there are some people out there who do actually like me, and I'm not afraid to admit it in public. We've got a strange friendship.
He's saying he did it because you won't ask him the difficult questions. He thinks because you're his friend.
Well, why don't you wait and see what questions I ask him before you decide whether I've lost my journalistic chops? It goes back to when I interviewed him 3 years ago in Turin. It was very weird how it all started. He messaged me. He's the most followed person on Instagram. So he's about to pass 500 million followers on Instagram. Can you believe that? He's the only human being in the world that will have that. And he private messaged me on Instagram, just saying, "I love your crime documentaries." and then the next day he called me and we had a chat, and then we started sort of messaging each other and having a bit of a laugh. And then I asked him for an interview, and he said, "Yeah, come to Turin." So I went to Turin. My oldest son came out with me. He's a massive Ronaldo fan. And we ended up having a 4-hour dinner with him and a couple of other people at his favourite Turin restaurant. And we just really got on well. And ever since then, we've stayed in regular contact. We speak regularly. It's an unusual friendship. I don't deny that. But I really like him. I think he's very smart. He's very personable. And I think that I've been certainly aware through this year of an increasing frustration. And I can honestly say it's got nothing to do with money and everything to do with his desire to win. You will not meet a more competitive person in the world than Ronaldo. And he feels it. Yes, he's got a big ego. Yes, he wants to keep breaking records and scoring goals in the Champions League and all these things. But ultimately, he wants to be at a club which he feels can do that too, because he thinks the two go hand in hand. And I think he feels if he'd been allowed to start as many games as he played last season, from the start of this season, he wouldn't be in this position. But instead, for whatever reason, this manager has decided to try and make an example of him, keep benching him, drop him, suspend him, muck him around, not show as much empathy behind the scenes over some serious situations which Ronaldo would have expected. And I think you put it all together and you get what's happened now. And, I just don't know how this ends, other than I share your view that it's unlikely that he can probably stay at United now, but you never know in football. I mean, I raised another spectre to him about where he might go and who he might play with, and he gives a fascinating answer. So I think people should watch the interview, and there'll be, a few jaws will be dropping, I can tell you that, quite regularly.
Interesting. All right, Piers, as always, lovely to have you on. Thanks for your time.
Thanks,
Piers. Good luck with how it goes.
Take care, guys.
See you later. You can watch Cristiano Ronaldo's world exclusive on Piers Morgan Uncensored on TalkTV in a 2-part special on Wednesday and Thursday this week. Both of those 8 p.m. Channel numbers are Sky 526, Freeview 236, Virgin 606, or you can also download the app. And as Piers says there's a lot that hasn't been seen. So it will be very, very interesting. I imagine it's going to make headlines for about another few weeks. So what time is it now? It's 9:25.
talkSPORT Breakfast with Laura Woods, Monday to Wednesday mornings 6 till 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.